In this lecture, we will talk about the historical urban development in Europe. The urban development of Europe can be divided into 5 periods. In this lecture, we will talk about the first 3 periods, the classical period, the medieval period, and the Renaissance and Baroque period. Greece was formed by a large number of city-states. They are called polis. Each city-state was like a tiny country. They had total sovereignty over their own territories because their governments were autonomous and independent. The Greek model of city-states achieved major success. The cities were culturally and economically prosperous. However, their success brought a new problem, overpopulation. To fix this problem, the Greeks started to launch expeditions to colonize new lands. Greek colonies were established in the coastal areas of the Mediterranean lands, including today's France, Spain, Italy, Turkey, and Africa. Greek cities share some common features. Acropolis is the center of the city. It serves as a political or religious hub or both. It usually locates on the top of a hill. This photo shows the Acropolis of Athens. Below the Acropolis is the location for Agora, which means public square and market. There are government buildings, temples, military quarters, and residential neighborhoods surrounding the Agora. The streets have a clear grid pattern. The city is protected by defensive city walls. Greek cities were quite small by today's standards. Most cities have had 10 to 15,000 population, while Athens probably reached a population of about 150,000. Greek civilization was displaced by the Roman Empire during the 2nd and 1st century BCE. By the 2nd century CE, the Roman Empire extended over the southern half of Europe. Roman cities share some common features with Greek cities, such as the central marketplace called Forum. It is similar to the Agora of Greek cities. Roman cities also have great patterns and defensive walls. There are also differences between Roman and Greek cities. Greek cities were mostly founded in coastal regions, whereas most Roman cities were in the inland areas. They were not independent city-states. They functioned within a well-organized empire and were designed along hierarchical systems. The well-paved Roman roads enabled long-distance trade and the management of a large network of cities and territories. During the Middle Ages, centralized power collapsed. Germanic tribes established kingdoms throughout Western Europe. Instead of centralized governments, the dominant social system in medieval Europe was feudalism. Feudalism cut back the development of cities at the early medieval period because its social structure favors the self-sufficient country manner instead of cities. As a result, cities declined, and people reverted to rural life. The only urban places to flourish or even survive were religious, trade, or defensive centers. The deterioration of roads had led to decline in trade. After 1000 CE, the resumption of long-distance trade gave rise to many medieval cities along the commercial routes crossing Europe. This is how country manor looks like. It's village-based, not urban. There is a manor house or castle where the lord lives, and there is a church and a village for the peasants, and the village is surrounded by farmlands. This figure illustrates the structure of a typical medieval city. At the city center is the town square or market plaza. Inside and surrounding this plaza are the main cathedral and church, guild halls, craft and trade center, and houses of prominent citizens. The streets and alleys are narrow. These streets are in irregular shape, which is different from the grid pattern of Greek and Roman cities. There is always a fortress or castle of local lord. The city is fortified by enclosing walls, and the walls often have water-filled moats to enhance defensive capacity. Finally, medieval towns are unhygienic because of the cramped conditions, the lack of air circulation, the poor sanitation, and the absence of waste treatment. An example of medieval city is Carcassonne in the southwest corner of France. It's a beautifully preserved small medieval city. The fortifications in Carcassonne were originally started by the Romans in 100 BC. In the Middle Ages, the walled city of Carcassonne is a powerful fortification sitting at the trading crossroad for the important port cities of Bedard, Nice, and Barcelona. Today it's a very popular tourist destination, one of the best medieval towns in Europe. The map of Carcassonne here is a perfect example of medieval city plan, with many elements that we've seen in the general medieval city model. We can see the cathedral, the castle for local lords, and two fortified walls surrounding the city. Another example is Siena in Tuscany, Italy. Siena has preserved its medieval art, architecture, and town planning to a remarkable degree. It's home to the famous Palio di Siena, which is a traditional medieval horse race that has been active since the 1200s. Renaissance refers to a period in European civilization that was marked by a revival of classical learning and wisdom. It started in Italy during the 14th century and reached its height in the 15th century. The Renaissance spread to the rest of Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries. In addition to the surge of interest in classical scholarship and values, the Renaissance also witnessed many remarkable changes, such as the Copernican revolution, the discovery and exploration of new continents, the decline of the feudal system, and the growth of mercantilism. The Age of Discovery started with the Portuguese exploration of the African coast in the search for a new sea route to Cathay. Cathay is the name of China known to Europe at that time. In 1492, Columbus found America in his search for a route to China. These discoveries shifted sea power from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic and to the emerging nation-states of Portugal, Spain, the Dutch Republic, France, and England. By discovery, conquest, and settlement, these nations expanded and colonized throughout the world. We will learn more about colonization and colonialism when we talk about Latin America, Africa, and Asia. Mercantilism or merchant capitalism is an economic system that was used by European countries during this period. Mercantilism is an economic practice by which countries use their economies to increase state power at the expense of other countries. Under mercantilism, a country's wealth is determined by its accumulation of gold and silver. In order to get gold and silver, a country needs to have a favorable balance of trade, which means more exports than imports. In mercantilism, wealth is considered as limited because gold and silver are scarce resources and there is only so much of them in the world. Trading is viewed as a zero-sum game, which means if one side of the trade gains, the other side must lose an equal amount. If one country gains more of the world's gold, then another country has less of it. Today, under capitalism and neoliberalism, a common understanding of trade is being positive sum. It means both sides can gain from trading by making the pie bigger through focusing on producing the goods that each country is good at producing, which is called production specialization. Capitalism and neoliberalism's view on trading is not necessarily right. We will talk about what they are and the criticisms and problems of these contemporary economic systems later in the semester. The growth of mercantilism gave rise to port cities along the trade lines. At the same time, the decline of feudalism and the rise of nation-states stimulated the growth of capital cities like Paris and Madrid. The central location of these capital cities aided the process of political consolidation of nation-states. In turn, these cities were given enhanced status and further momentum for growth. Similarly, regional centers emerged to fill up the expanding hierarchical urban network. In addition to the growth of port and capital cities, Renaissance also had profound influences on the appearance and structures of cities, owing to the new forms of art, architecture, and urban planning. Flourishing artistic and architectural expression gave rise to various kinds of beautification of cities, such as sculptures, fountains, and embellishment on monumental buildings. After the introduction of gunpowder, massive city walls became outdated. In many cities, the walls were removed to make space for wide boulevards. Also, the accumulation of great wealth by the crown and the nobility led to construction of opulent palaces in many cities. Beginning in Paris, many districts containing narrow medieval streets were torn down to make way for wide boulevards that radiated outward and connected the various palaces and gardens. The rediscovery of classical models of design marked a significant departure from medieval times. This is the end of this lecture. Thanks for watching.